Welcome back to GA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm joined here by Matthew Hurley from the GA Statsman podcast to run through an action-packed weekend of National Football League action. 16 games to run through, so definitely a lot to discuss from Division 1 all the way down to Division 4. Yeah, plenty of thrills and spills, some surprise results in there. Roscommon getting a huge win against Tyrone. Also wins in Division 1 for the likes of Armagh. Getting a huge victory in there as well. You think of Division 2, Dublin starting their campaign with a win, but at the same time, you had Meath pulling off a bit of a surprise result away to Cork, which I'm sure Matthew will have plenty to say about a little bit later on. And obviously in Division 3 and Division 4, plenty of surprise results in there as well. Laois beating Sligo away from home is definitely a result that stands out in my opinion. Matthew, how is life? Are you over the Cork defeat yet? Or is there still, some bad feelings waking up this morning about that?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aaron, on the channel. Yeah, it's very disappointing now. Like after yesterday, after the first half, even we were thinking we might be on the road for a win, and we were thinking we could have been further ahead at halftime than 2 points. Kind of disappointed going in only 2 points up, and then one goal from Jordan Morris just changes the whole complexion of the game, and It changed the complexion of our season as well, because we have Kildare next week now. We've Dublin in 2 weeks. I'm sure you'll have a lot to say about Dublin's performance against Kildare as well. Wasn't the best, but did improve, I'm sure, once we come to match day 3. So, look, at half-time, it looked good for the Cork footballers, but at the end of the game, it looks all doom and gloom. And I think you said on your podcast recently, Cork are one result away from a crisis, and it proves that way after yesterday. So, yeah, a lot of action during the weekend. Great that GA is back. A decent amount of games this weekend, and looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, and one thing stood out as well for me, looking at all the scores, even as I was putting the scores up here just in the dashboard in the background, a lot of very, very competitive scores. I think there was only 4 or 5 games where the margin was over 4 or 5 points. And aside from Derry, Limerick, and Leitrim, Waterford, a lot of the games were very, very competitive. Had a lot of late goals, late points, and I think that's what makes the league so exciting, because we know in the championship, when it comes around to the provincial championships, we'll see 15, 20-point victories, and even in the group stages, we could potentially get that as well, depending on how it all goes. But I suppose in the league, all the teams are in the same division for a reason, and that was a great thing that stood out for me at the weekend, was seeing so many competitive games and so many games going down to the wire as well.
Exactly that, yeah, and even the Galway Mayo game, it probably wasn't the best of quality on Saturday night. I was watching that game, doing stats on it, obviously, and they were 2 evenly matched sides, and that's the main thing about the league. The Kerry and the Donegal game evenly matched as well. Most of the matches in Division 1, when you thought Armagh might pull away from Monaghan, in fairness to Monaghan, they put up a fight as well. Even Dublin Kildare was a very competitive game. I thought Dublin, to be honest with you, was really run amok at Kildare, especially what they did in the Leinster final last year. But Kildare stuck with them, in fairness to them. Maybe Kildare, you said on the live stream yourself, might have been disappointed coming away from Cork Park with a loss. But look, the league is there for a reason. It's a very good competition. I suppose with the 2 games you mentioned, Derry, Limerick, I had high aspirations for Limerick. I'm not going to lie. Maybe it's my own biases. Maybe because I go to college in Limerick and hope they'd put up a challenge. But Derry were just absolutely outstanding. And I think people are kind of sleepy on Derry in pre-season. Winning by 12 points is an outstanding margin. And Leitrim, Waterford, to be honest, that was predictable. Waterford are the one county in Ireland that you think they're just not interested in football. There just isn't the quality there, unfortunately, in Waterford, despite the good work kind of what Aoife Fitzgerald is doing at the moment. So yeah, the league was very, very entertaining this weekend. A few shock results as well, like the Laois Sligo game really caught my eye in Division 4, the 6-point win for Laois. like on loads of podcasts, even my own with Seamus Brady last week, we were saying how far have Laois fallen, and we were saying Sligo could get maximum points. Already, Sligo are in a bit of bother for promotion now. So, yeah, it's very interesting games during the week, and even epitomising Division 4 on one Saturday night, there was 2 games, 2 draws. So, yeah, very entertaining games, and yeah, looking forward to getting into it. And yeah, the Football League is well and truly begun.
Yeah, test case says as well here, Matthew, Meath beat Cork. I think just reminding you there, like in case you know, just kind of slipped your brain. But we'll certainly get onto that maybe a little bit later. But yeah, starting off obviously with the game you mentioned there, it was Mayo 111, Galway 2-8. Probably the game of the weekend in terms of the games that we got to see live on TV. Very, very entertaining stuff. It was a strange game. Like I probably didn't, as you said there, like I didn't have a huge amount of quality in terms of scoring, or you know, there was a lot of turnovers. It was a bit of a scrappy game, but at the same time it was edge of your seat stuff. There was plenty of goals on show, like James Carr's cracker of a goal in the first half. Matthew Tierney obviously responds with a goal of his own. Sean Kelly gets a very, very good goal for Galway in the second half as well. That was a brilliantly taken finish. And it was like, although it was a National League game in the opening weekend, it almost got the feeling of like a championship game or something. Like both sides were really, really going for it towards the end. And it was great stuff. And I suppose the Mayo-Galway rivalry lives to fight another day.
Exactly. So, and yeah, you epitomised that perfectly. Like, it wasn't the best quality of game. It was a very tight, scrappy game. Like the James Carr goal was absolutely outstanding. Like, what impressed me about Mayo during the weekend, I thought, was their unity in defence, really. Like, when you look at their turnovers, for example, they had 56% turnover rate compared to Galway's 44%. And yeah, that epitomised Mayo all night. They were hungry in the tackle. They were hungry to get on the ball. I suppose maybe a bit of a negative for Mayo, it wasn't Galway's first team. Like, Tom O'Callaghan was injured for this game. Rob Finnerty went off early. Hopefully he's okay in the next few weeks. Like, he is a game as we speak tomorrow for DCU. I'm not sure is he going to make it, and it probably you know, adds to the conversation of player welfare as well. Should he have been playing this game? I know he's a brilliant player and all that, and yeah, maybe because DCU were in Sigerson Cup action week in, week out, and then he plays in this intense game against Mayo, and then he picks up an unfortunate injury. And like I think we're going to repeat ourselves in the podcast over this about player welfare. It's a big issue in the GA at the moment. I think the lads on League Sunday, Paul Flynn and Sean Kavanagh, were talking about this with the amount of games in the championship as well. The Sigerson Cup leading into it. There's more Sigerson Cup games this week as well. I mean, it's crazy stuff, you know. And even Conor Glass and Conor Glass and all the Glen lads playing for Derry at the weekend as well. That's wrong as well, which we'll probably get on to later. But in terms of the game, like, Mayo, I thought were pretty good in attack as well. Like, when you look at Ryan O'Donoghue getting that late score, Killian O'Connor coming back to fitness, getting that late score. Aidan Norm was a bit awful, but you'd imagine he'll be back up to full fitness as the league goes on. Like, we were actually thinking that Mayo would miss Lee Keegan and Oisin Mullen in the defence, but I thought Mayo's defence was resolute really all night. I thought they restricted Galway to not much in the game. Like, I think they only got 1-1 in the second half, Galway, through Paul Conroy, a brilliant score, by the way, and Sean Kelly's goal, which, to be honest, came out of nothing. So I think Mayo will be happy with the result. Maybe Galway will as well. I think both sides will stay up in the division. I don't think either side will particularly want to reach a league final, because we're talking so many build-up of games, and Connacht is so competitive this year. When you look at the side of the draw, Mayo, Galway play each other on the first day, Connacht as well. They'll be all roads leading to that. So it's going to be interesting to see how these sides develop, but I think both sides will be happy with the result.
Yeah, I suppose from a Mayo perspective, like obviously with Kevin McStay, his first game, he obviously knows Galway very well. I mean, he competed against them on numerous occasions as a player, and also, of course, when he managed Roscommon as well. Like, and you could see with Mayo, like, he definitely got a kick out of them lads, and even the likes of James Carr, Aidan Norm, I thought was impressive as well, although I don't think he scored in the game. And then obviously Ryan O'Donoghue finishing with 6 points as well. So, like, you could clearly see with Kevin McStay, you know, he's getting a tune out of those lads. And when you have the likes of Killian O'Connor, Aidan O'Shea, Kevin McLaughlin coming off the bench, like, Mayo squad depth is pretty good this year.
It is, yeah, and even the new lads coming into the fray, like Bob too. He was one fella that impressed me, like, making runs, not particularly score. He scored 1 point in the night, but His runs from defence to attack, I thought, was absolutely brilliant. His lingo play, James Carr showed his quality with that goal. He seems to only score bangers, that guy. He's an incredible footballer. He was out in the last few years with injury. He's come back now, brilliant footballer. Like, you look at Matthew Rowan, Jordan Flynn around the middle as well. Dermot O'Connor had a decent enough game as well. Like, Mayo, it rolls off the tongue, like, some very, very talented footballers in that team. And I'd be very hopeful about Mayo this season. Like, I wouldn't have been at the end of the game against Kerry last year, in all honesty. I thought they laid down way too easily in that game. Jack Carney's another very good player. Like, even players coming out. Owen McLaughlin's another one. He's still young enough, but experienced enough as well. He played in big games like the Dublin game in 2021 and the All-Ireland finals in 2021 as well. So very experienced there. Paul Towie even coming onto the pitch. We talked about him numerous times, doing so well over in America. His scoring record's absolutely incredible. I think he scored like 4-14 in one game, one challenge game in America last year. So it probably just shows his quality as well. So, like, Mayo have some very good players. Conor Loftus at centre back was interesting the other night, and Joe, I think it worked. I think Mayo's intensity to tackle was absolutely brilliant the other night. So, in my opinion, I think it actually worked. Maybe they'll do that for the next few games, see how it goes. And if there's a bit of a fault in the next few weeks, they can always change it. Like, they can always put Stephen Cohen back at the centre back, who played wing back the other night. Donegal McHugh's a very good player. Rory Brickington at full back. Jack Coyne had a very good game as well, I felt. I think he had a brilliant game. Colin Reap in goal is a new breed coming up in goal. Rob Henley, of course, is coming back from injury. So that's brilliant for Mayo as well. So, yeah, I think there's players all over the field for Mayo, and I'd be very hopeful for Mayo in the next few months. Like, yeah, even Codal Dempsey for UL is a very impressive player, and he can't get a look in on this Mayo team. So I think Mayo do have the players. Will they win an All-Ireland this year? I don't think so. I don't think they've the temperament to win an All-Ireland. I think Galway were missing more players than Mayo tonight, and I think Galway have more to push on to them. But I think this year's a good start, and they've no better man than Kevin McStay to push them on. He knows Mayo football inside and out. He's been on the Sunday game. He knows what it's all about. So, yeah, I think it's a brilliant appointment for Mayo. Do I think they'll win the All-Ireland this year? No. But in the next few years, maybe it's a possibility.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Galway perspective, as you said, like a little bit leggy maybe towards the end of the game, and obviously don't have a lot of their players available. I mean, obviously Shane Walsh still has to come back in. You've seen obviously Peter Cook come off the bench. Like, could he be a potential regular starter further down the line? So, like, I mean, do you think there'll be, because it's a weird one with Galway, like usually a point at McHale Park, especially for a newly promoted team, would be a good result. But considering Galway were in the All-Ireland final last year, and considering they beat Mayo, of course, in the championship last year as well, like, you got the feeling of a little bit of disappointment maybe from Padraig Joyce. But at the same time, like, a point away to Mayo is not a bad result.
It's not really, and even the performance for Galway over in the last few minutes when they kind of kicked the game away, they could have won the game and got a draw. But if you were to ask a Galway fan before the game, would you have accepted a draw on McHale Park the first day out without Tom O'Culhan and with a few players involved in Sigerson Cup? You know, the tiredness of the legs will be there. And as the boy Cullen lads as well in the All-Ireland club semi-final in the last few weeks or so, I'd say Galway fans would have taken the draw in the heartbeat, to be honest with you. Like, it's McHale Park, it's going to be a bit of an intense game. They had 8 different scores in the game, which is very encouraging. As you mentioned there, they had no Shane Walsh, they had no Tom O'Culhan because of injury. Robert Finnerty going off is a huge miss. I hope Robert Finnerty actually recovers pretty soon, because he's one player that I enjoy watching. I think he's an incredible footballer and maybe a bit underrated. Hopefully he'll recover. I don't think the injury looked pretty bad, like him getting carried off, and hopefully he'll recover soon. Matthew Tierney had a decent enough game with that goal. Damien Comer still showed his quality with 3 points as well. Desi Kinnear didn't get into the game enough. I thought he was very anonymous in this game, but he had more gears to go up, I'm sure. You mentioned Peter Cook, like, where would he feature in the midfield? Like, you have Paul Conroy there, you have Killian McDade, who are 2 top-class midfielders, and arguably both of them could have gone the All-Star team last year. Paul Conroy himself scored an unbelievable point the other night. Killian McDade scored a point as well as that. Like, you have Daniel O'Flaherty, who I was very impressed with the wing back. I thought he was brilliant. Neil Mulcahy from Mike Cullen is another new player coming in. He's still at Dylan McHugh and John Daly there. Conor Gleeson, I was a bit sceptical of Conor Gleeson, especially last season in the games, particularly against Armagh and Kerry in the All-Ireland Championship. But I thought the other night, I thought his kickouts especially were brilliant. Like he was using the wins to his advantage. He was kicking them beyond the opposition 65, which you rarely see in Gaelic football. So I think that was brilliant. So I'd see Owen Kelly coming back into the team as well. Sean Kelly making marauding runs from fullback. Colin Sweeney coming off the bench, like Jack Lynn. So Galway have a good squad. They have more to come back into the team. I don't think Galway will be targeting the league particularly, but I think they could be a dark horse for the All-Ireland, because we get on to Kerry in the minute now, but with Kerry, maybe they're a bit overrated in the sense that without David Clifford, they struggle. So maybe that's something that Galway can look at. Dublin weren't that good the other night against Kildare either. So Galway, I think, after appearing in the last year's All-Ireland final, I think with the squad they have at the moment, and Power Joyce, it's his fourth year, I think, at this stage now. I think Galway will be gunning for the All-Ireland this year. They have to. I think they could be dark horses to claim the Sam Maguire.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I suppose you were saying there in regards to Kerry obviously getting beat by Donegal by a scoreline of 13 points to 1-9. Huge result for Donegal, first of all, like with Paddy Carr obviously coming in as manager. Obviously a lot of sort of, speculation maybe about a rift behind the scenes and Michael Murphy stepping away. And when they concede that early goal from Darragh Moynihan, puts it away, obviously very good finish from himself after the mistake from Brendan McCole. Kerry were, I think, 4 or 5 points up at that stage, and you felt like surely a team of Kerry's experience will go on to win the game, even without a lot of their best players available. But fair play to Donegal, like they kept ticking, they kept, going at it. Caelan McColgan, very good player, good introduction into the team, 3 points from himself. I thought he was very impressive. Even the likes of young Johnny McCroddy, who's come into the side as well. So, like, for Donegal, even though they do have a couple of players that aren't available, Michael Murphy, Neil McGee, Pater Mogan, I think, has opted out this year as well. So, I mean, to get a few of those additions into the side, like, Donegal fans will be feeling a lot more positive tonight than they would have been a couple of days ago before the game anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, another player to mention as well, Conor O'Donnell, who's been scoring freely over the last few seasons, scored 3 points as well. Outstanding performance. Darragh Boyle, 2 points as well. And he was mostly playing inside the forward line, which is very unusual for him. Like, he's usually a defender. So that was a brilliant performance by him. Sean Patton was pretty good at kickouts. Patrick McBrearty was pretty quiet as well, which is maybe another positive that the other Donegal players are actually stepping up to the plate. And he got that late score. You can't find much more than a clutch player than Paddy McBrearty. Outstanding from him. I suppose, like, Donegal, it was a brilliant result. It was a brilliant confidence booster, brilliant win for Paddy Carr to get you under the belt. But what I will say, that's Kerry's, I'd say, second, third team, without Sean O'Shea, without David Clifford, without Paddy Clifford, without Shane Ryan in goal, who I think is actually more important than the other three in terms of his kick-out style as well. I actually think he's much better than Shane Murphy in goal, and it was epitomised last season. So I think Kerry were without a good view. So I think Donegal, maybe, it was a good win, but Donegal fans need to maybe calm down a small bit. Like, this wasn't the Kerry All-Ireland winning team from last year. It was well off it, I think. And the McGrath Cup showed that. It was, like, I looked at the Kerry team before the game. It was relatively the same team that played Cork in the McGrath Cup. Cork beat them by 12 points that night. So I just think that wasn't, Kerry are not going strong in the league at all. They should beat Monaghan next week at home, especially at home. Monaghan have that trip to travel down, and it's down to Kildare. Kerry have way better players than Monaghan, even their second and third team, the likes of Darragh Roach, Killian Spillane, and Tony Brosnan, for example. So I think Kerry should be fine in terms of staying up in the league. Do I think they'll go for the league? Probably not this season. Like, I think they'll bake Clifford in probably March, and go for it late on the league. But Donegal still have a lot of work to do. Like, they need to beat Monaghan first of all in this league to stay up. They probably need to beat Tyrone probably next week as well. That's a huge game now. If Donegal win that, you're thinking mission accomplished. They could even stay up now. So very good work from Paddy Carr. But next week is the main aim now for Tyrone, the game against Tyrone. So one game at a time for Donegal, but very good result for them. And hopefully they won't get too carried away, because that Kerry team, I don't think, was at the races really.
Does it maybe say that Kerry's depth in their squad maybe isn't as good as what we think? I mean, Killian Spillane has been a very good impact player coming off the bench in big games, plenty of times against Dublin. I remember down the years where he's come off the bench and made an impact. But just a point from him in the game, like he was fairly quiet, I felt, and thought Mark Curran, who was picking him up, done a very, very good job at sort of limiting his sort of influence on the game. But even maybe a few other lads as well, like not really stepping up to the plate. So maybe does it show that Kerry's sort of depth in their squad isn't as strong as what we think?
Maybe so. Like a lot of people were saying last year that Kerry had a brilliant depth and all that, and it was difficult to see how any team could beat them. Now, Killian Spillane's an interesting one because me and Seamus were mentioning that last week on my podcast. Check it out if you haven't already. But like he seems to do well off the bench. Even the game against Cork in 2020, he was the one player coming off, and you're thinking, what a performance by him. He's trying to drag Kerry, kicking and screaming to the Munster final here. But whenever he starts for some reason, he doesn't have the same impact. I don't know what it is. Maybe he's just a bench player, but I would have thought that this game, particularly against a Donegal team that a lot of people would say would struggle this season, including myself, and this was the game where Killian Spillane had to, shake off the shackles and prove that he's a brilliant player on the ball. Like even Tony Brosnan, I don't think scored anything in this game. Darragh Roach was the forward that really took the spotlight here, scoring 3 points from play, and he could be one to watch this season. But what would worry me, without Sean O'Shea, without Paddy Clifford, without David Clifford, if 2 of those get injured during the championship, this would worry me about Kerry. I think they'll still get out of Munster pretty easily, to be honest. In all honesty, I think Cork, as shown yesterday, are pretty well off it. But I think in terms of All-Irelands, I think Kerry could struggle without 2 of those 3 main players, or maybe even Shane. Shane Ryan is a big loss as well. Without him, Kerry don't tick. So that's something Jack O'Connor needs to brush up on. Something interesting, actually, Jack O'Connor was claiming that Paddy McBurdy's shot went wide, and he was complaining to the referee at the end of the game. And I was like,
yeah,
it's a league game. It's the first league game of the season, and you're already complaining. I mean, geez, you're all champions. All you have to do is beat Monaghan next week, and all the crisis is averted. So I mean, it was pretty. I don't know. It was bad form really from Jack O'Connor to do that. Like I think Donegal probably were up for it more than Kerry yesterday. So yeah, Kerry should have no qualms about the results yesterday. Move on to next week, beat Monaghan, and you're as good as safe. So yeah, it was a pretty bad form from Jack O'Connor. But yeah, you would have thought Killian Spillane especially would have stepped up yesterday, but there was no signs of it yesterday, and there's been no signs of it when he started in previous games either, which would be a worry for Jack O'Connor going forward.
Yeah, plenty of comments flying in, so much appreciate. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if people could as well. Mikey says Mayo's biggest problem has always been an attack. Tommy Conroy, back fit is crucial. He's a much better player than Aidan Orme. Yeah, like I think Aidan Orme isn't the finished article, and to be fair, Tommy Conroy is just as young. But I remember, yeah, he's a very explosive footballer, very, very good player. And it was obviously missing last year as well. So to get him back will be absolutely crucial. Miguel says, grateful to get out Castleblaney with a win, 6 points clear, and just about held on for a crucial win. Hoping for a league final, but Division 1 isn't easy. Says an Armagh fan there. Mikey says, Roscommon, Armagh, league final. Here we go. And yeah, I suppose moving on, maybe to those 2 games, looking at Roscommon first of all. Roscommon 3-11, Tyrone 1-12. Worrying times for Tyrone, but for Roscommon, huge victory. I mean, we know the problems and struggles that they've had in Division 1. It's their first win versus Tyrone as well in either league or championship since 2001, which really puts things into perspective there from a Roscommon point of view. And Ben O'Carroll, great addition to the side, scoring 1-2. And the Smith coming off the bench, having a huge influence, setting up 2 goals. So, yeah, Davy Burke getting a real kick out of these Roscommon lads.
He is, yeah, and weirdly enough, we mentioned so many podcasts, and I was thinking as I was on these various podcasts, that Roscommon could beat Tyrone here, because Tyrone's form, especially last week against Derry, like they were an utter shambles against Derry, and they seemed like an utter shambles in this game as well. like, yeah, Ben O'Carroll, as you mentioned, brilliant performance. The two Murtas as well. And I said this last year and I say it again. Dermot Murta needs to start every game for Roscommon. I think he's an incredible footballer, incredible goal threat as well. And Roscommon need him to start every game. Inda Smith was a brilliant link player. Dara Craig is another young player. Scored 1 point yesterday as well. Ben O'Carroll. So Roscommon have very good young players coming through. You look at Conor Cox, who wasn't a star yesterday, another quality footballer. Keane McKeown, who I don't think played yesterday, and he's a quality footballer as well. Brian Stack is captain this year at centre back, very good player. So yeah, I think like Roscommon could have a good year. I think they have a very good panel. I think the only worry for Roscommon in the championship down the line, particularly, they face Mayo or Galway in the semi-final in Connacht, and that's going to be an incredibly difficult game. It'll be an entertaining game, no doubt, but I think that might be, far past Roscommon. But I was listening to Darragh O'Connor actually on your podcast last week, a small bit, and he was saying this is the time where Roscommon need to go to a semi-final. And to be honest, I've been saying this for years as well. When you look at Roscommon's talent, when you see other counties progress, even Cork reached an All-Ireland semi-final in 2012, Monaghan did in 2018, Cavan and Tip did in 2020. In fact, Tipperary did also in 2016. So and Galway and Derry obviously last year. So I'm thinking this is the time for Roscommon to reach a semi-final if they're going to show what brilliant talents they have. They have a brilliant team. I think they have one of the best teams in the country right now when you look at the young players in this team. But I think what Davy Burke can do with them is push them onto another level. When you look at what he's done with Kildare under-20s, with Wicklow staying in Division 3, with Mayo University winning the Colleges League competition, I think his record is absolutely incredible, and he's a great motivator as well. So I think Roscommon would have an absolutely outstanding year, to be honest with you. Maybe a semi-final could be there, maybe a league final as well, which would be brilliant. But it's crucial now for this Roscommon side to go further into the championship this season, or else the hard work for early on this year particularly might be undone.
Yeah, like I think it's important not to think too far ahead from a Roscommon perspective. I mean, like last year, I thought they were sensational in Division 2 and didn't lose a game, and everything was really going according to plan. Like lost to Galway, and it was a fairly comfortable victory for Galway in the end in the Connacht final. But Roscommon did sort of drag it back a little bit late on to make the scoreline a little bit more respectable. And then it was the defeat to Clare that probably really put the nail in the coffin from a Roscommon point of view and made the year look a lot worse than what it was. But as you're saying there, like they do have lots of good players. I mean, 5 players who started. I seen one of the YouTube comments on the match reaction yesterday, and they were saying that 5 of the under-20 players that played in the All-Ireland final in 2021, the under-20 All-Ireland final, featured yesterday. So like they have a lot of talent, they have a lot of players, and as you said, you mix it in with the experience of Enda Smith, German Murta, Kieran Murta as well, John Daly, Niall Daly. I mean, lots of very, very good players in and around this Roscommon side. And like, yeah, I agree with you. I think they could possibly be a serious dark horse for something special this year.
Exactly. So, and I was thinking the same way last season about Roscommon. In Division 2 especially, I thought, against Galway in the league final, like they were outstanding that day. But then in the championship, I don't know, it just didn't click really. Like when you look at it against Sligo, I think Sligo had a man sent off and things started to fall apart for them. Galway, they were way off the pace. And then a game against Clare, where we were in complete control going into the last few minutes. And then Clare somehow, from 5 points behind, then somehow win the game. I mean, I don't know what went on in Roscommon that day. And I've been seeing it for years, really. Like even the time when they reached the league semi-final, when they played Kerry in Croke Park, I think that season they also lost to Clare. So maybe that's just a coincidence. Maybe the key for Roscommon is just to avoid Clare in the All-Ireland qualifiers, and you're through, maybe. So yeah, it's a weird coincidence that, but yeah, I think Roscommon need to push on. I thought even in that under-20 final, like I'm thinking of a few players from that day that probably didn't feature much yesterday. James Fitzpatrick, I remember at centre forward that time, was an outstanding footballer as well, and you'd wonder how does he get into the team. So I think Roscommon have outstanding players. They have an outstanding manager. They have a very good backroom team. They're well drilled. I think Roscommon could have a brilliant year this year, but probably I'd agree with you. They need to, improve as they go on this season, stay in Division 1, and then maybe think about an All-Ireland semi-final appearance, because the likes of Cavan have done it, the likes of Derry, Galway, Monaghan, Tipperary, the list of counties is kind of endless as well. So why can't Roscommon reach an All-Ireland semi-final? So yeah, it's a brilliant win for Roscommon yesterday, but The next game now is the big game. I'm not actually sure who they're playing next. I think it's Galway they're playing next. It's going to be a big game there, Galway. It's just across the road there. So it's going to be a huge, huge game for Roscommon. If they can somehow get a win in that, maybe the sky's the limit for this Roscommon team.
Yeah, playing Galway away next week. So yeah, I mean that's a very interesting game. I mean, if they can turn Galway over in their own backyard, I mean, it will be a serious, serious statement indeed. Even with Galway still potentially missing a few players as well. From a Tyrone perspective, I mean, just all doesn't seem right. Like I was looking at it there, since they won that All Ireland in 2021, they've played 10 games in both league and championship, and they've won 3 of them, which is very, very poor. Actually, 4 of them when you count the Kildare win as well. And they beat Kildare, Mayo, Kerry, and they also beat Fermanagh in the championship as well. So, look, you'd look at those wins against Mayo and Kerry and think that's absolutely brilliant. And that was at the end of the league last year, and it was probably the only real sort of spark we've seen from Tyrone in the past 2 years. And again, like a strange performance. Like they were 3 points up at about 20 minutes ago. They were looking all right, but it all just fell apart. And yeah, like things just don't seem right at all for the for Tyrone.
They don't know. It's very, very strange. Like even last year with Tiernan McCann left, Paul Donaghy, outstanding footballers, and they just go and lead the man. Mark Bradley, Rory Brennan. Rory Brennan was one of them. Lee Brennan was another as well. Like this is endless of players that have just walked up, left the panel. And I don't know what's wrong with this Tyrone team. They seem to be going pretty well in the McKenna Cup as well, up until the Derry game, and then they just collapsed. I don't know what was wrong with this Tyrone team. I know I was mentioning on the JMAC podcast last week as well that if they did manage to lose to Roscommon, which they did, they're in serious trouble, this Tyrone team. And this could be a domino effect. They play Donegal next week now. Like, if they lose that, and when you look at Donegal's confidence from the Kerry game, especially from yesterday, Tyrone lose that, and they're down at it. Down and out. Like, I think Monaghan is probably the only realistic win there. Kerry still have the Cliffords and Sean O'Shea to come back into the team. Armagh will look at this game against Roscommon for Tyrone and will be licking their lips. You know, I think Tyrone are very, very poor. Like, you would have thought last season, like I was listening for some reason last week, I just came across the analysis of the Derry game last year where they lost 118 to 10 points. That was embarrassing. And Sean Kavanagh was mentioning this has to be a wake-up moment for Tyrone. It doesn't seem to be now. Like, we're still in the same situation as they were against Derry and against Armagh. Like Mick Foley was saying at the end of your review, Tyrone are still floating, still dangerous, and they'll be bouncing back from their All-Ireland collapse. But it doesn't seem that way early on in the league. I don't know what is going on in the Tyrone camp. And someone was actually mentioning to me as well on my Instagram reaction comments, if they get relegated and have a terrible year in the All-Ireland, which is a possibility this season, Fergal Logan and Brian Tudor could walk them. You know, I think from going to win the All-Ireland in 2021 to then walking 2 years later, I mean, it's a huge collapse for Tyrone. I don't know where it stops. Like, you would have thought the under-20 success may have breathed confidence into this Tyrone team. The likes of Rory Canavan, Conor Crush, all them would move into the team. Slowly but surely, Niall Devlin as well, who scored a point yesterday, as you can see from the match report. But I don't know where Tyrone picked themselves up from this, you know. And if they lose to Donegal next week, unfortunately for the Red Hand, it could be curtains.
Yeah, like and after the Donegal game as well, they play Galway and Mayo away back to back. And look, I know they have a great record against Mayo recently, but I think, you know, Mayo would love nothing more to put maybe a final nail in Tyrone's coffin and possibly a defeat there. If they lose to Donegal and Galway, could very well see them relegated. And yeah, like as you said there, like they were All Ireland champions in 2021, and I know a lot of people maybe are looking at Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher and saying like there mustn't be something right behind the scenes, but at the same time, like these were the two men who led Tyrone to the promised land in 2021. These were the two men who were in charge of that All-Ireland win. They won an under-20 All-Ireland a couple of years ago. Fergal Logan did, from what I remember. And he got a buy-in there, and he got the players, you know, kicking. They beat Kerry and Mayo in the lead up to the final, and there seemed to be a real togetherness in Tyrone, winning their first All-Ireland since 2008. So, like, it's mad. Like I wonder what's changed so quickly. If there has, for all of a sudden them to be as poor as they are, because like it is baffling, really. Like you can understand when there's a manager rift, maybe when things aren't going right, but these were the men who won the All Ireland for Tyrone. So yeah, it's bizarre, really.
It is when you think about it. Like at the end of 2021, we mentioned a load of people on podcasts mentioned about Tyrone, the togetherness. We haven't seen that in years from this Tyrone team. Like under Mickey Hart, a lot of them were walking away. There didn't seem to be that in Tyrone, and Brian Dewar and Fergal Logan seemed to be making them happy. But then as soon as 2022 rolls around, you see the list of players going: Mark Bradley, Lee Brennan, Paul Donaghy, Tiernan McCann, Rory Brennan this season, Conor McKenna going down to Oz this season as well. Like I don't know what is wrong with Tyrone. Maybe there isn't just the belief there. Maybe they won the All Ireland and thinking that's it. This is as far as we're going to go, and there's no point in going even further. Like when you look at Kerry and Dublin, for example, there's a hunger to win, another one back to back, and another one after that, and Limerick in the hurling the same way. There doesn't seem to be that kind of culture in Tyrone. Even when they had them outstanding teams in 03. Even in 06 when they lost to Laois and Derry, after winning the All-Ireland with Peter Canavan and all them outstanding players, there didn't seem to be the same drive afterwards. Even 2009, there was a bit of hope then, and then Cork come to Croke Park and absolutely pummeled them, And even when Cork were down to 14 men, there didn't seem to be, there was a lack of urgency about this Tyrone team. And there's the saying, the leopards don't change their spots. Maybe this is the same with Tyrone. Maybe once they win the All-Ireland, they're thinking, this is as far as we're going to go, and we're not going to go again for a second in a row, third in a row, etc., etc. But even like when you think about it, like after their 03 win, the 2 years after that they won the All Ireland. After their 05 win, 2 years later they lost. I think they lost to Meath in the All Ireland quarter final. 2 years after they won the All Ireland in 08, they lost to Dublin in 10, which wasn't expected at that time. And then this year, it's an utter collapse. So I don't know, like one out of a possible 4 good years out of 2 years after winning the All-Ireland, that doesn't read well for Tyrone either. And yeah, I think there's this sort of, I don't know, it's just something that's going on up there. And I don't know, it's something that you can't fix really with Tyrone. And even with Brian Dewar there, with all the All-Irelands he had, I'm thinking maybe he can get something out of this Tyrone team, but looking at the performance yesterday and looking at the game against Derry, especially a few weeks or 2 weeks ago, it doesn't seem to be that way, and it could be a long, long year for Tyrone.
Yeah, worrying times indeed for Tyrone. Make no mistake about that. And obviously a big game for them next week against Donegal, because if they do get beaten there, then all of a sudden relegation looks very, very likely for Tyrone. Monaghan, they got beat by Armagh 112 to 114. Huge result for Armagh. Obviously a tough test for Armagh. Like it's never easy going down to Castleblaney, and obviously that goal in the first half coming from the Rory Beggan mistake. I mean, that was a goal that really sort of turned the tide of the game, because Monaghan were leading at that point. But big result for Armagh, and I suppose the good thing from an Armagh perspective now is that they're able to grind out these wins. Maybe when it is tough, when the going does get tough away to a rival, they find a way to win. And it wasn't perfect from Armagh from what I heard. I mean, going off the highlights, you can't really see too much, but at the same time, they'll be fairly happy to get the result and get the victory.
Exactly. So, and even the amount of scores I was mentioning a few weeks ago with Armagh, that McKenna Cup game, I think it was against Antrim, they had 14 different scores. In this game, joint with Tyrone, they had the most scores out of any team in the National Football League, 1-32. So 9 different scores in the team. Like when you look at the scores rolling off the page, Aidan Nugent, Ethan Rafferty scoring for play, another brilliant score from him. He was mentioned in depth on League Sunday last night. Andrew Merlin, Ross McQuillan, Rory Grugan, Tiernan Kelly, even a redemption arc for him getting that goal. I know Rory Beggan made that mistake, but ever since that eye gouge, that infamous eye gouge, he goes on and gets a goal in the first game of the league back. So brilliant from him, brilliant to get up on the horse and keep going again. Stephen Campbell getting 2 points, Rian O'Neill coming back again, 2 points for play. So also been good for Armagh, and I think a league could be up there for Armagh, because Galway are resting a few players, Kerry are resting a few players, and a lot of people are saying, including myself, before the league that there's a clear top three in the league: Galway, Armagh, Kerry. And like when you look at Galway and Kerry resting a few players, Armagh are going ho. I think Armagh could go on and win the league this year. I think the signs are looking good for this Armagh team, and I think they need to win a trophy as well. They need to win an Ulster title. And I think they're going on the right way about it. And you mentioned about them grinding out wins when they weren't particularly good. They weren't particularly good against Donegal in the Ulster Championship last year. They lost heavily. They weren't particularly good the other night and got a win. So all positives for Armagh. Brilliant result for them. And there's a lot to work on performance-wise for them, but I think they could be going on a road for the league title this year and a first title under Kieran McGeeney as well. So that'll be some achievement for this Armagh players.
And I suppose for Monaghan, I mean, obviously beaten by 2 points, but plenty of fight from them. Obviously, Conor McCarthy scoring 1-2. Micheál Bannigan with 4 points in there as well. Obviously, Vinnie Corey's first game as manager of Monaghan. And, from looking at the highlights again, I mean, look, they fought tooth and nail. They got themselves a late goal. Armagh really, hanging on towards the ends of the game. But like from Monaghan's perspective, obviously disappointed with the defeat at home, and it will be very tough for them to stay in the division this year, in my opinion. But at the same time, like a few positives to take from the game.
There is, yeah. Like there was a few different scores for Monaghan as well. Conor McCarthy, Micheál Bannigan scoring 3 points for play, who I really rate as a player. That Rory Beggan mistake, like you could argue if that didn't happen, Monaghan could be on the way to a win. So yeah, Monaghan were lucky in this game, like Shane Carey, Sean Jones, Desi Ward. There was very good performances all over the field for Monaghan this game. But I think, honestly, they could go down this season. It's not like Tyrone where it's an absolute mess in the camp or anything like that. I think there's good unity. But maybe there's the situation. I just don't think Monaghan are good enough this year to stay up. I mentioned Seamus Brady last week as well. Maybe they use up their 9 lives like a regular cat, but I think they have, honestly, this Monaghan team. I think they've been in the league for long enough now. And when you look at Roscommon's performance yesterday, look, I think realistically, when you look at the performance all over the weekend and take into account performances last year, I think the only team they could beat realistically are Tyrone, possibly Donegal, to stay in the league, which they could do. They've done it before, but I think this Monaghan team have probably used up their 9 lives by now, and I think they could be on the road to relegation, unfortunately. But there's still some positives. There's good performances to take from the game. But going down to Kerry next week, I know Kerry are playing their second or third team right now, but I still think going down to Kildare or Tralee, that's going to be a tough assignment for this Monaghan team.
Yeah, like I think, like looking at their fixtures there as well, like they do play Donegal and Tyrone at home before playing Mayo away on the final day. So if they could get 2 wins there going into that final game against Mayo, like that would be, could it be set up for them maybe to pull off the Great Escape once again? But it'd be very tough to get at McHale Park. But yeah, as you said there, like definitely going to be tough for them. But at the same time, some good performers in there. Micheál Bannigan, Conor McCarthy as well. I think Jack McCarron was looking on the Scorbio app, went off after a couple of minutes, so maybe a potential injury there. So hopefully he's all good. But at the same time, from a Monaghan perspective, definitely a lot to be positive for. Moving on to Division 2, where it is all happening, and Dublin 111, Kildare 13 points at Croke Park. Not a great performance by Dublin by any stretch of the imagination. I was saying on Twitter, like I think a lot of Division 3 teams would have beaten Dublin. I think they were definitely there for the taking. And, Kildare, massive missed opportunity, in my opinion. It could have been their first win at Croke Park since 2000, I think it was. So, huge opportunity missed. Few positives from Dublin. I think the main one is the result. But I suppose, what were your thoughts watching on as a neutral?
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange game. I thought it was boring at the start, to be honest with you. Like a lot of men behind the ball. I'm thinking like Dublin, All-Ireland champions for 6 times in a row as recently as 2020, and then doing this against Kildare. I mean, no offense, Aaron, but it looked pretty bad, But at the same time, look, a win's a win. They didn't perform particularly well. Even Brian Fenton getting man of the match, I think, and getting team of the week. To be honest, like he only scored a goal, and that was it really for Brian Fenton. I didn't think he had a usual brilliant Brian Fenton performance. I know Jack Robinson from Kildare deserved it, to be honest, honestly. But will lead that. But yeah, they scored 1-7 from play. Kildare scored 8 points. Like Kildare had more scores than Dublin in the game as well. Now Kildare will be coming out of this game thinking, how did we not win it? You know, look, I think the defence was after the Brian Fenton goal, they kind of shored up a bit, and I thought they did well in points. But you mentioned on the live stream as well, Kildare had 1 goal chance in the entire game, and against Dublin, like I know you're going for a win, but that's really not acceptable against Dublin team. They almost scored, to be fair to them, but yeah, it was a weird game, really weird game. Both sides performed poorly. Sean Cavan was mentioning last night as well. It was almost like a Division 2 game, which is not really a compliment to Dublin. Like even the players coming on, that fellow, I think it was number 25. I think it was Killian O'Gara, his name was, and I'm thinking, geez, where did you get this guy? Where are you getting all these players? Like even the players coming on for Dublin that night. Like I'm rolling through the names here. Davy Byrne, I suppose, Dean Rock, Padder Coffey-Burr, but Colin Baskill is usually a club player and didn't really impress either. Killian O'Gara coming on. Dean Rock, in fairness, only took a free, really, and didn't do much other than that. Davy Byrne's a defender. Paddy O'Coffey-Burn came on very late, which is a bit surprising. I honestly think maybe he should start instead of Tom Lahiff in midfield. He adds more to the Dublin attack. I think Dublin's defence is actually quite good this season when you look at it. Like John Small there, decent enough. Lee Gannon, Keane Murphy. Like Greg McEnany was a bit of an off-field pick. I never heard of the guy before, and maybe you have, Aaron. I've never heard of him. Like Owen Merchant coming back from a few injuries. One positive, I suppose, David O'Hanlon, I actually think is better than Evan Comerford. So maybe you could start him in the Leinster Championship. Even lads like Niall Scully, Kieran Kilkenny, Conor O'Callaghan, they just weren't on it that night. I don't know what was up with them really. Sean McMahon, it was almost like you were playing a sweeper that night as well. Ross McGarry, I don't think scored much. Cara Costello was in and out of the game. So it was a poor performance from Dublin. But as you mentioned, look, a win's a win. They got out with a win. But Kildare, look at their performance and the amount of good performances in the forward line particularly. You'd be thinking as a Kildare fan, how on earth did we not win that game against Dublin? We had more scores. We probably had better performance levels than them. So how did we not win it? You know, but look, Kildare will look to next week against Cork, a gimme. And Dublin will look to another gimme against Limerick, and they'll move on again next week. So maybe they'll get confidence by battering Limerick next week. Who knows? This Dublin team.
Yeah, I mean, like there was a lot of rustiness there, all right. And I suppose like with Dublin in the O'Byrne Cup down the years, like, and in particular this year, like it was a development team that played. Like there was no, barely any of the players that even played in this game in the league even featured in that defeat to Offaly, for example. So I mean, there was a lot of, it was a lot of rustiness. Like even Conor O'Callaghan in the first half didn't look up to the pace. He got better in the second half, but was fairly slow. Kieran Kilkenny, like playing a full forward, I've said it time and time again. Like I think he has to play in the half forward line because that's where you see the best out of him. Like he's the man who's setting up scores. He's picking out players in front of him, and as well as like making forward runs and getting a few scores himself. I just think in a full forward, you just don't really see the best out of him, to be honest with you. Like he was fairly quiet, I felt, and yeah, like a lot of sort of disappointing performances. But I suppose the strange thing was, as you said there, like I mean, Dublin were very, very defensive. I mean, there was multiple times I remember watching in the first half, and you've seen every Dublin player inside their own 45. Which I did find a little bit odd. Now, we have seen Dublin be defensive down the years, against the likes of Kerry and Mayo. Like when they have a lead, they're trying to shore things up and, slow the game down and everything else. But to be doing that against Kildare in the first half, no disrespect to Kildare, like good side, but like realistically, like look what we done to Kildare last year when we attacked them, when we went after them. It was strange that we didn't do that this year against Kildare. And it led me to think that maybe a bit like Kerry against Cork in 2020, Dublin are potentially preparing for something further down the line. Like, is this the game plan they're going to have when they potentially meet Kerry or potentially meet Mayo or whoever it may be, Galway or Armagh, to try and beat them in a big, big championship game? I mean, because it was strange seeing that against Kildare.
Yeah, it was really strange, really strange. And even when you look at some of the opponents in Division 2, like Kildare will probably be up at the higher end of Division 2. So to do that against that kind of a team makes it even stranger. Like Dublin could have easily lost that game. Why not try it against Limerick next week? I know, like, no disrespect to Limerick now, they're up from Division 3, brilliant achievement and all that, but realistically, Dublin are going to hammer Limerick any day of the week. So maybe try it against Limerick when you know you're going to win. But there was the Kildare game. I know Kildare, you're saying it yourself, like you look at the Leinster final, they were way ahead of Kildare, but to do it with that forward line, with Dara Kieran on the pitch, imagine if they had Daniel Flynn as well, if he was fit enough for this game. Kildare could have won it, you know, so like that was a huge risk for Dublin to take. They got away with it. Look, they won it. I don't think Dublin would be complaining. They'll go back to the training ground now, but like it was strange, really strange. But even to do it in the first half, I thought was pretty poor. Now I mentioned as well, like judging by the card count in all the league games, this was by far I would say the dirtiest game, and it didn't really look dirty to be honest. With 11 yellow cards in this game, I think the ref was a bit card happy, giving out cards for the sake of it. I think Glenn Ryan for the Kildare manager got the yellow card at the start of the second half as well. So the game entirely was slow, very, very slow. Usually Division 2 games will be entertaining, but this game, I don't know, even Dublin games, like you'd usually see, I don't know, scorelines in 120, 117. Even on a bad day, let's say 113 or 116. But they scored 111. Like that doesn't really bode well for Dublin. I think they'll hammer Limerick next week, but look, I think Dublin are going to go up anyway. There's no qualms about that. But if Dublin produce that performance against the likes of Kerry, against Galway, against Armagh, they could get a bit of a hiding if them sides are on it, particularly for the first minute. You know, so this is a worry for Dublin, I think, going down the line. Even the players coming off the bench as well. Like, I don't know. I know like there is positives, like Jack McCaffrey's coming back, Paul Mannion's coming back to the team. So there are positives in that regard. But by that performance the other night, it looked slow, it looked lethargic. And it was a very, very strange game to watch. Very boring indeed. The first Alliance League game of the season to watch on TV. It wasn't really pretty, and I don't think people in Croke Park got their money's worth.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like I was doing a watch along for the game, and it was very hard to do, to be honest, because you were running out of things to talk about very quickly. But from a Kildare perspective, I mean, they didn't win the game, as you said, and they'll definitely look back and they'll be disappointed about that. But some positives to take. Like, I mean, Jack Robinson looks like a very good player. 3 points from him. Dara Kieran again, very impressive. Jimmy Hoyland with 3 points as well. Still have Daniel Flynn to come back. So, for Kildare, they'll be happy with how they played. I mean, defensively, I thought they'd done very well. And look, they competed very well with Dublin, and I think that's the main thing. And it will give them confidence if they are to meet Dublin in the Leinster Championship in Croke Park at some point later in the year.
Maybe so, but when you think about like Paul Mannion, Jack McCaffrey to come back, I think this will be a well different Dublin team by then. So, I think this was probably the chance for Kildare to beat Dublin. You mentioned that in the live stream as well. And you had that feeling like Kildare's shooting actually in the first half was incredible. 0 wides. Like that was a pretty good showing. But the problem was in the entire game they had 5 short in inter-county level against Dublin. I mean, that's not really good enough from a Kildare point of view. Like when you look, their kickouts were pretty good, turnovers very good. Their discipline at times was maybe off the charts a small bit, but look, Kildare, they should take positives from this game that they competed with Dublin, albeit Dublin performed very poorly themselves. So maybe there's the thing in their heads that they think we could have won this game, we left it behind us. But look, they'll move on to next week. I think they'll definitely win next week anyway, next Sunday. They'll win that pretty comprehensively. They're back at their own patch in Newbridge against a very, very poor Cork team. So I think they'll probably win next week, and then they're on 2 points and they're up there again. I think they'll be targeting the Derry game now, Kildare, to gain promotion. Like I think Meath is another big game, another big rivalry for that. Clare could be a big game as well. Usually Clare have a good record against Kildare, so like that could be a game that the Lily Whites could be wary of. But look, I think defensively as well, they weren't too bad. But at the same time, Dublin didn't really. The passes were there, if you get what I'm saying. Like they were in the first few minutes for Brian Fenton's goal, but they just weren't there in any time after that. So, like, Kildare really didn't get a test after that. So, yeah, they'll have to work on the training ground about that. How can we avoid conceding, sloppy goals like the Brian Fenton goal the other night? It was kind of like the same situation in Leinster final, leaving space in front of them. But the only positive, they did it only once in the game. So maybe they, instead of 5 times in one half, so maybe they can take that as a positive. But like, if Daniel Flynn comes back into the team, I think they will be a force, Kildare. So I think there are some positives to take for Kildare. But then the big negative is Dublin weren't at their best. The game was there for the taking to win. And not just for the league to get promoted, but psychologically as well for these Kildare players. To win in Croke Park would be incredible for this team. And I think they just left it behind them, in all honesty. And yeah, they'll move on to next week anyway. They'll probably get a win. But yeah, it's a difficult one to take that they didn't beat Dublin while their rivals were playing so poorly.
Yeah, Donald says here, Monaghan seemed good considering Jack got injured and McManus rested. And Michael also says Armagh missing a few players, though the 2 Mackins, Greg McCabe, James Morgan and Ben Creeley, all absent there. So definitely a lot to be positive for from a Armagh perspective, with players coming back into the team at some point further down the line. Cork, 19 points. Meath, 3-14. Matthew, where did they go wrong?
Jesus, like I don't know. Like, yeah, I thought the McGrath Cup, we turned the corner. Beating Kerry, doing so well against Limerick. Like, Kevin Walsh coming in to coach defensively, even at half time, 11 points to 1-6, and you're thinking the new Cork, it is back. Then Jordan Morris scores a goal, and I honestly, like, it's just yearly at this point. I don't know when it's going to stop. Like maybe we overrate our players a bit too much as well. Like I've rated Sean Meehan and Daniel O'Mahony on this channel a few times at centre back and full back, and I was hoping we build a partnership there, but it just wasn't there at the weekend. We were all over the place defensively. And even in the forwards as well, like, we had no players to take the Meath players on. Like, usually when we go past the 45, we turn around, hand pass again. We were doing that against Derry last season in Old Big. I mean, like, we thought in the McGrath Cup against Limerick particularly, I know it's only Limerick, but when you look at the game against Limerick in full, we were kicking the ball, we were threatening the opposition with intricate passes. But this time, yesterday, was just dreadful. Even like you had no player that could break a line. Like, to be honest, the only players that were willing to break a line were probably Sean Powter, Matty Taylor, and I would say Chris O'Jones as well. The rest of them, I mean, it was just ridiculously bad to watch, really. Like, the midfield wasn't particularly bad. Colin McCallum and Ian Maguire, I actually think we won the midfield battle pretty handily. But it's just the basic, defending basics, like. Even the Shane Walsh goal when Kevin O'Donovan gets turned. But I'd be questioning who's in behind. And just some basics as well. Like, even the Micheál Martin save at the first half, the warning signs should have been there. Like, even Jason Scully, I think, had the ball. And Sean Meehan, he retreats. And you're thinking, what are you taught of as 6 and 7-year-old young GA players? Go to the danger. None of the Cork players were going to the danger. They were chasing the B players all over the fields. They were running in different directions. The Killian O'Sullivan goal, the third goal, really took the biscuit. I mean, how much space do you need? I mean, it was just, it angered me, to be honest, Aaron, after, weeks of people saying the Kevin Walsh effect, it's taking effect now. Kerry didn't really have a goal chance in the McGrath Cup. Limerick, but I said it last week. I said it on my live stream last week on my GS Statsman YouTube channel. The 2 goals Limerick scored will not impress Kevin Walsh, and we have to be wary of this. Don't make the same errors like we did against Limerick, against Meath. And we did it even worse. How is that possible? It's just, it was just frustrating to watch, to be honest with you. Like, the first half wasn't particularly bad. Like, we scored 11 points. Then in the second half, like, coming into the game, if you said Cork would score 19 points, I'll be thinking 2 points on the board. Okay, we'll move on to Kildare next week. We could go into the Dublin game with a bit of confidence in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. But somehow we lost. We conceded 3 goals, 3 sloppy goals, 3 avoidable goals as well. And I actually think this B team, I don't think they're that good. and we made them look like prime Dublin at times. I mean, it was very, very bad to watch. Like, even look at the Meath game before the game, I was thinking, like, this isn't the Meath of old. I don't think they're that good. Like, Shane Walsh, okay, Jordan Morris, but when you look at the players out the field, I literally didn't know who they were before the game. And they've just announced themselves now, and it had to be against Cork. You know, it's like a lot of people were saying, one step forward, 2 steps back. It's a big bat now for Cork, and like you said it earlier on the channel, we're one result away from crisis. I said on the JMAT podcast last week, this game's important. A lot of Cork fans were getting ahead of themselves, thinking, oh, we won the McGrath Cup, we beat Kerry by 12 points. The old Cork is back. We have a settled team, and I said it, we have a settled team this year, and we're building under John Cleary. But then at the start of this year, I'm thinking to the lads, to the Cork fans, relax, lads. It's the McGrath Cup. We have Meath next week. Meath could turn up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and run asunder on us. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was just awful to watch. Like, at least Dublin performed poorly from your point of view and win a game. We perform really, really badly in one half of football, and we lose our first game. And all of a sudden now, we're staring down the barrel of a Italian Cup. I mean, how quickly fortunes can change within a few hours. I mean, it's incredible, Aaron.
Yeah, it's mad, all right. And Joseph says, since we lost, or there was another comment here, Cork have been in that cycle since 2015, since we lost that controversial Munster final replay. Yeah, like, I mean, and that's the thing with Cork, and that's why I even said, and I was saying it to you, and, you know, obviously I'm in my predictions video as well, where I was even saying, like, you know, Cork are always 1 defeat away from a crisis, and, you know, like, since they've won the All-Ireland, really, maybe sort of in 2012, 2013, they kind of looked fairly well, and they were consistent enough back then, but it just seems like one bad result and it all just comes tumbling down. And you even look at the fixtures now as well. Kildare next, away from home, and then Dublin at home. And look, Dublin didn't look particularly great, to be fair, but you'd expect them to, you know, be a little bit better by the time they play Cork in about 2-3 weeks' time. So, like, all of a sudden for Cork, I mean, like, if they don't get anything from those 2 games, all of a sudden then it's another relegation battle.
And I'll tell you this for a fact, Aaron, we won't. We won't. Look at the game, particularly yesterday, like the amount of, I know Finian Hanley was saying, he's from the JMAC podcast as well, give it time. Kevin Walsh, I played under him. He's an excellent tactician and all that, but like, he's not going to fix the problem within a week. I don't know what was going on defensively. Like, some of the players just switched off yesterday completely. I don't know what was the issue. Like, we made Meath look like prime Dublin with forwards like Jordan Morris and Shane Walsh. And to be honest, they're the only recognisable leaking forwards that Meath had yesterday. Imagine when we come up against Jimmy Hyland, Jack Robinson, and Derek Kieran next week in Newbridge. We are going to get destroyed. You know, and another thing, like, cynicism as well. Like, I thought this Cork team turned the corner last year. Oisin McConville was even mentioning the game management was there against the likes of Limerick, against Dublin, against Louth, and against Kerry last season. But when you look at the free count, and this was particularly interesting in my stats yesterday, Cork conceded 9 frees, Meath conceded 23. You might think Meath are a dirty team, but whenever Cork were moving up the field, Meath had the cynicism to drag them down. You know, be smart in your play, defend properly, tackle properly. Meath had that, you know, they didn't have recognisable players in their defence, but boy, they were well able to tackle. We weren't able to tackle yesterday. And I mean, where we go from here now, and I don't know, like, we'll probably lose to Kildare next week. We'll lose to Dublin. That's just a write-off. I knew that from the get-go. Like, Dublin are just much better than us. All of a sudden, that Limerick game now in Páirc Uí Chaoimh is so important. If we manage to lose the Limerick now, lads are just going to leave to America, and we're staring down the barrel of the Italian Cup with half a team. I mean, it's like, it's tough times. It's just so disappointing, Aaron, because we had so much potential. Look at the McGrath Cup. A lot of people were bigging us up. James O'Donoghue was saying on the football pod, Cork are going to be a dark horse this year. we're going to go up from Division 2. We'll go to the Derry game in the last game of the season in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and thinking we could get promotion here. We can go up with Dublin, have a day out in Croke Park against Dublin in the league final. All of a sudden, that result yesterday, and our season has completely turned upside down. And I don't see where we're going to get any points out of our next 2 games, Aaron, honestly. Like, when you look at even further down the line, Limerick, we should beat Limerick, but you don't know about this Cork team. Clare, I don't think we'll beat them in Ennis now. I simply don't. I think Clare, had the grit and determination we mentioned against Laois yesterday as well. So I think Clare are as good as last year, really. You look at the next few games after that, we should beat Laois, but then again, that's a Drogheda, so you don't know what's going to happen there. And Derry are in the form of their lives as well, and will be gaining confidence to go on a promotion charge. So we could be looking at a situation where Cork have only 2 points on the board. Like, it's worrying times. Really, really worrying times. And from going from a situation where we're thinking we could be up there with the likes of Kildare, Derry and Dublin and challenging, gaining a bit of confidence this season, again like Derry and Galway last season, to get to a semi-final with the blue, to stare down the barrel of basically the Europa League of GA. I mean, that's all I have to say, and it's really bad situation for Cork at the moment.
Yeah, Meath man says, let's not forget GA Statsman predicted Meath to come 7th and Cork 3rd. Not any hate, love the content. Look, I think a lot of us did predict Meath to finish. I think I said they'd finish 6th and maybe Cork 4th, I think were my predictions. But at the same time, we didn't quite see Meath having it in them to turn Cork over in the end. And I suppose word on Meath, like as you said, maybe it was a strange game, like they were behind for most of it, and it wasn't really until that Jordan Morris goal where they sort of woke up and really sort of dug the victory out. But for Colm O'Rourke to get a win away at Cork, I mean, that's a great start. And all of a sudden, maybe Meath were the team that a lot of people were looking at to be in a crisis, and before you know it, here we go, they've got a victory. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with them now going forward.
It will be. The reason actually I predicted them to finish 7th, and I said this plenty, I didn't see any stars in that Meath team. Like, they're playing Matthew Costello as a full forward, for example, and to me, he's a defender. I don't know why you're playing him in the full forwards. Like Jordan Morris, I see as a star in that team. Shane Walsh is a good up-and-coming player, but didn't show his potential up until yesterday. It had to be against Cork, but anyway. Like, Donny McGowan is a good player for Rattle. I think Harry Hogan was an excellent goalkeeper. Weirdly enough, though, Harry Hogan had a pretty poor game yesterday in terms of kickouts. So, it was pretty weird. But when you look at the defence and the bench, particularly for me, I was looking at it before the game and thinking, who's who, literally? Like, I didn't know who the Meath players were defensively, other than Donald Kyoga, perhaps. And they performed brilliantly. Like, defensively, I thought their tackling was superb. I thought their cynicism was brilliant. So, bear in mind, though, you were playing a Cork team that just didn't know the basics of defending. So maybe, like, you play a team next week, they're much more united defensively in Clare. You'll see how they'll get on there. Like Park Talton, it's a pretty much a fortress of a stadium. So I think you could beat Clare. But then again, look, I think if you beat Clare next week, I think Meath could be up there promotion-wise. I think they're a pretty good side. Win for either side, really, for Clare or Meath. We'll mention Clare in a minute, but I think that's the main aim for me now, get the Clare game. And it's interesting, like Colm O'Rourke was mentioning so many things on the Sunday game, whereas I think kick passing, I think Joe Brady mentioned it a few on a tweet earlier today about Meath kick passing, Meath cynicism. Colm O'Rourke actually mentioned those particular things on the Sunday game, and he implemented this into these Meath players, which is another positive. And another reason actually just came into my head why I predicted Meath to finish 7th, because let's not forget, Aaron, in the O'Byrne Cup they struggled badly against Laois, against Longford, and against Carlow. Like, they struggled to beat Carlow. Like, Carlow, I think, were ahead at half time, and you were thinking, where is this Meath team going? But then yesterday, they had a very, very good start. They implemented some very good stuff, like Colm O'Rourke, Sean Boylan in the background, Stephen Bray, legendary player as well. So if they beat Clare next week, I think Meath could be onto something in the league. So, but it's important for these Meath fans to not get ahead of themselves just yet.
Yeah, like I think, one or two defeats and they could very well be dragged back into a possible relegation scrap. But obviously playing Clare next week will be a huge game for them at home, and a chance to obviously put right that defeat to Clare in the championship last year. Moving on from that, we Derry, who beat Limerick by a scoreline of 16 points to 4. I mean, an absolute domination. And when you look at how well Derry done in the McGrath Cup, they completely tore Tyrone inside and out. And Conor Glass back straight away into the team, no messing about after the All-Ireland Club final last weekend. And I think Shane McGuigan scored 9 points from what I've seen. Derry going very, very strong. And Limerick, just no way of dealing with this Derry side at all.
No, there isn't. I think they've gone under the radar a small bit, Derry. Even before the Tyrone game, a lot of people were talking about Tyrone down, how they'll recover in the McKenna Cup. But I just think this Derry team is pretty good. Like when you look at Conor Glass, they're pretty good performance from him. The Watty Graham's Dane lads performed well, but there is a question about player welfare as well. Why are these lads actually playing in this game? I really don't know. Conor McGuckian on the bench as well. There was another Watty Graham's Dane lad. I think Ethan Doherty. I think was one of the Doherty's who was playing in this game as well. And you're thinking, why is there any need for them to play in this game? But look, they got the win. Shane McGuigan outstanding. Niall Toner had a very good game as well. So onwards and upwards for Derry. But Limerick, I had high hopes about this Limerick team. Honestly, I thought they'd stay up in Division 2 because of their strength and conditioning and what's been done behind the scenes. Ray Dempsey's doing a good. He's a good manager. He's done well with not more. And I thought this Limerick team would build on their successes the last few seasons. But it probably just showed this Limerick team has a bit to go yet in development. And it was a harsh lesson for this Limerick team. But Derry well deserving winners. But I question why the Watty Graham's lads were playing this game, considering the decision will be made in that situation with Kilmacud tonight. So they could be playing in a club final then. So what then? So it's mad. It really is mad. But look, win is a win for Derry. They'll move on to next week now, and they'll have definitely much more tougher tests than this. But a good win to get Derry going.
Yeah, no, it definitely is all right. And as Jarlath said here, Derry only conceding 4 points. That's incredible stuff, really, from a Derry perspective, and how well they've started Division 2. And when you look at Dublin, maybe a bit inconsistent, potentially not quite at the races just yet, and obviously Cork haven't started quite poorly as they have. There is a chance where Derry could really go on and cruise through this league and potentially go on and win the Division 2 title. But obviously from Limerick, as you said, still plenty of games to turn things around, but definitely finishing with 4 points, it's a very, very low tally. And whether you could put that down to great defensive work from Derry, obviously none of us seen the game because there was no highlights shown on Allianz League Sunday. But finishing with 4 points, it is quite worrying there from a Limerick perspective. Clare 13 points, Louth 1-9, 4 points in injury time for Clare to miraculously turn it around and get the victory. Incredible in the end, and you have to feel sorry a bit for Louth because what a win this would have been to go away to Clare, one of the Division 2 solidifiers in many ways. But fair play to Clare. Look, they dig it out and they do what they do best, which is pulling off victories in Division 2.
Jamie Malone did what he did best, last minute scores to win the game. Brilliant score from him and brilliant determination shown by this Clare team. They could have easily laid down. A few other teams would have laid down from this low performance. Look, I was hearing from fellas that were at the game, G. Edits was one of them, a Clare fan, a very good Clare fan at that. He was mentioning Louth were playing the same way as the Cork game last year, which, to be honest, it didn't surprise me. Louth are just that type of team. They sit back and they make it frustrating. But the main thing for this Clare team is they won. And that was a brilliant, brilliant win to get. And they're playing Meath next week now. They have a poor record against Meath. Win that, and I think Clare could be a dark horse for promotion. When you look at their next few games, they've a very good team. They've Limerick, they should beat them. Cork, on Cork's performance, they should beat them as well. So the main thing is probably they'll be targeting the Derry game. No disrespect to Derry, no, but they're not going to beat Dublin and Croke Park. So it's good. It's a good win for Clare, very good win. And as for Louth, I've seen a few Louth fans actually complaining there was a few minutes added for additional time. on to the 6 minutes, there were 7 minutes played. And I was thinking, after what Laois did, Burn Cup, maybe a bit of karma there. Maybe a bit of karma. So, yeah, it was a good win for Clare, but Laois, they still have time to recover. I still think they'll make it hard for any opponents in Division 2. And that was a good start. They could have won this game, but Clare, they showed that dogged spirit, and Colm Collins, his team does it again.
Yeah, poor Loud. They never seem to quite get the rub of the green in these close games. Moving on to Division 3, Westmeath 1-6, Cavan 12 points. Big result for Cavan there to go away to Westmeath, get revenge on Westmeath, who obviously beat them in the Tailteann Cup final last year. Looking at the highlights on Allianz League Sunday, and looking at the score as well, a bit disappointed with Westmeath, to only finish with 1-6. I think they only scored 2 or 3 points from play in the entire game, which was a little bit poor. And obviously it is the first game for Desi Dolan coming in as manager. They obviously have a Sam Maguire place already wrapped up, so maybe there isn't as much pressure on them in the league. But I have to say, performance-wise and scoring-wise, a little bit disappointing from a Westmeath perspective. But big result for Cavan and a strong start for them. And when you see through the years in the league, they have had a few poor starts and then sort of played catch up as the league has gone on, but that's a big result for them.
It's a very good result for them, and I suppose the main turning point in it, looking at Leeds Sunday, looking at the Scorpio app as well, was the Sam McCartan black card. That probably changed the game. Westmeath couldn't really recover. I think Cavan's main players actually stood up in this game. Ray McGalligan scoring 3 frees, very good performance from him. Martin Riley, experienced campaigner there. They lost Thomas Gallagher. I think Paddy Hinch wasn't playing yesterday either. And yeah, it was a very good victory for Cavan. It was a comfortable victory. Yeah, Westmeath had 3 points and 1 point in the second half. Yeah, it was a very good win for Cavan. And Westmeath, it will take time. I think a lot of people were thinking they won the Tailteann Cup and they'd easily go up. And I think Paul Finn was actually mentioning about Westmeath, there isn't much pressure on them to go, considering they're guaranteed a Sam Maguire place after their Tailteann Cup win last season. So maybe Jonas is off them for this year. But to be honest, this was one of Westmeath's hardest opponents in Cavan. Down would be the other hard opponents. If Westmeath win the other games and maybe sneak a victory against Down, I think, and Cavan maybe drop a few points, I think Westmeath could still chance for promotion. It's not the end of the world for them. I think they'll go again in the next few weeks. But brilliant victory for Cavan. Brilliant to get off the mark, which they haven't done the last few years. And that ended up in them going down the leagues eventually to Division 4. So very, very good win for Cavan, and a very impressive performance from them.
Yeah, and I think I still fancy Westmeath to get promoted. I'd still stick to that, still stick to that prediction. But definitely a lot of work to be done, anyways. And I think the problem for Westmeath in the league in the last couple of years has been inconsistency and not being able to get a good run of results together. But obviously, looking at it next weekend, you'd certainly expect them to bounce back. Tipperary won 11 down to 11 there. Obviously, late goal by Tipperary made the game look a little bit closer than what it was. Seen Conor Francis got a goal in the first half, and big results for Down. And I seen Stephen Poacher's tweet as well about Jim McGuinness somewhat being involved. Took a training session, I believe, before a week before, but obviously it has now been confirmed from Conor Laverty, the Down manager, that he's not involved and he just took a training session, whereas Poacher maybe implied that he was in with the part of the backroom team. So sort of an interesting scenario there. I don't know what was going on there, but nonetheless, great result for Down and their first league win since 2021.
Yeah, very good victory for Down, and I think they're kind of a county on the up now. Conor Laverty, I think Kevin McGorty actually mentioned that Conor Laverty was one of the best coaches in Ireland, and I actually nearly agree with that. I think he's an incredible motivator of the players, incredible motivator from Kilcoo as well. Kind of surprised there was only 2 Kilcoo players in the Down team. Maybe they'll take some more persuading to get on the team, but this is a good start for them. Pat Havern scoring 1-4 as well. Pretty good performance from him. Yeah, it was a brilliant win for Down and brilliant, all positives, all rose in the garden. The Tipperary still have a lot to prove on. I think this was a decent enough performance considering I think Down will get promoted this year. I think they have that bit about them this year. They have the steeliness. I think they have very good players coming out through the ranks. Let's not forget the under-20 teams that played Roscommon in that semi-final a few seasons ago and won Ulster as well. So pretty good players coming up through the ranks for Down, and Kilcrew players might come back into it. As regards to Stephen Poacher tweet, what on earth was he thinking we were supposed to think, you know? Like I know it's a ridiculous situation, you know, when you're saying, oh, Jim McGuinness coming in all brilliant, all brilliant for Down. Jim McGuinness has just coming in as well, all looks good. And we're thinking, like, Jim McGuinness has come in. Oh my God, this is a news story here. Like, I honestly wonder with these managers now, for sake, are they just trying to make a story out of nothing? Seriously, you know. Well, to be honest, like Jim McGuinness taking a drip training session, that's still impressive. As I said, what I think he did with what's the club name, Martin and Loud under Samuel Roy, who we mentioned on the podcast as well. So, and you've seen they won a Loud championship as well. So, like, that could be good for Down. And a lot of people were thinking they could win the championship. I wonder what people are thinking now that has been confirmed that he's not on the management team at all. But yeah, very good victory for Down. But as regards to Stephen Poacher, maybe stay with the coaching rather than tweeting, and you should be fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, like, I've listened to him on a good few podcasts and everything else, and he does seem very insightful and seems like a good chap and everything else. But yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Like, I don't know. Like, if you know, and then you wonder, is there something more going on? And you know, Conor Lafferty's trying to keep it under wraps. Because Poacher would have a lot of good connections within Down. Like, I think he was managing the under-20s at one point, or involved with the minors, and he's obviously managing in the Down Club Championship at the moment as well. So a little bit of an odd tweet there, nonetheless. But we'll certainly have to keep an eye on that space, sort of in the coming weeks. Moving on, Antrim 12 points, Offaly 2-12, big result there for the faithful county. They start with a win, obviously one of the contenders for promotion as well. Antrim, one of the sides that many people are looking at to potentially go down. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, expected really. Like, Antrim are probably one of the worst teams in this division, so yeah, Offaly got a well-deserved win. What I'm interested in, actually, Noel McNamee wasn't named on the panel. It was said by Liam Kearns that he's 99% sure that he won't play for Offaly this season. So that could be a big loss to them. Like, Johnny Maloney's a big loss as well. But look, to get 2 points on the board, you have to be happy as an Offaly fan to get off the board with a win. For Antrim under Andy McEntee, I think this could be a struggle of a year. I think they could go back down to Division 4. They're probably one of the lesser equipped sides in Ulster as well. So yeah, it was a good win for Offaly to go up all the way up there to Cork Park geographically wise, but I think with the losses of Johnny Maloney and probably Noel McNamee as well, it looks like it anyway. I think Offaly could struggle in Division 3 this year. Like, they'll be judged on the games against Westmeath, having them down, but I think in terms of survival, they should be fine. They should be fine in survival. But for Antrim, I think it could be a rough year.
Yeah. Like, I mean, looking at it as well from Offaly, like, obviously Highland in there with 4 points, Anton Sullivan with 3, Nigel Dunn with 2 points, Rory McNamee with 1-1 as well. And still have a lot of players to come back in, like Cian Farrell still needs to come back in from injury. He hasn't played since 2021. You'd expect him to come back into the side at some point. You've obviously got the likes of Jack Bryant, Keith O'Neill, Cormac Egan. So a lot of players still to come back in from an Offaly perspective. So the fact that we're missing those lads, and still went away to Antrim, which, as you said, is a tough place to go to, you know, no matter where Antrim are in the table. So to go there, turn them over, I think is a very, very positive result indeed. Another surprise result really at the weekend was Fermanagh, who turned over Longford 15 points to 8, a 7-point victory there. I mean, look, Fermanagh always tough to beat in their own backyard, playing in Derry this time around as opposed to Brewster Park. But considering how good Longford looked in pre-season, winning the O'Byrne Cup, it goes to show really, like, when you look at Cork as well, maybe pre-season doesn't matter too much.
It doesn't, no, and this result actually got me scared before the Cork and Meath game as well. I mentioned in a tweet. So yeah, look, it was a good win for Fermanagh. Like, I know Fermanagh are a good side. I think they have good young players coming through, and Kieran Donnelly's doing a brilliant job, but maybe it's a situation for Longford and Paddy Christie back down to earth, you know, back to the drawing board. In terms of survival, Longford always seem to pull out the rabbit out of the hat, so I think Longford should be fine in terms of survival. But yeah, this was kind of a kick in the teeth, really, this result. in terms of, like, you look at through the sequence of events in Scorpio, it looked like Longford weren't really going to win this game at any point. Fermanagh had this game in the bag for pretty much the whole game. Sean Quigley scoring 7 points. Sean Quigley doing Sean Quigley things. And it looks like that won't be changing. So he'll be definitely up for the golden boot for the league this season again. So it's weird. Like, how long is Sean Quigley going to go on? Like, he's an incredible footballer with incredible longevity. He's an incredible free taker as well. So yeah, very good win for Fermanagh, but for Longford and Paddy Christie, good players coming through. But look, the O'Byrne Cup isn't the be all and end all. It's back to the drawing board for them.
I think Longford should have enough to still stay up, but definitely a lot of worrying signs. When you look at some of the games, some of the teams they have to play, like the likes of Down, Offaly, Westmeath, Cavan, like I think with a defeat like this, in a manner of the defeat, 7 points, like I think they could be dragged into a relegation scrap, but I think all in all they should have enough in my opinion. Moving on to Division 4. Big result that stands out here was Laois going away to Sligo, winning 2-11 to 11 points. Myself and yourself as well, very much believing that Sligo are the favourites for Division 4. I think a lot of people believe in that. Laois, in a bit of turmoil, didn't look good in the O'Byrne Cup. And here they go. They've gone away to Sligo, turned them over, won by 6 points. I've seen Paddy Kingston there back in the side as well, with 6 points. Paul Kingston. Big result for Laois there.
Yeah, and I suppose it just shows the buy-in really from Laois players. Paul Kingston's coming back into the team and Mark Barry coming into the team as well. Like, it's a good result for Laois. Like, I didn't think they had it in them, to be honest with you. I thought they were on a slippery slope, but yeah, it seems like Laois football is slowly coming back up the ranks. Like, when you look at the players I mentioned last week and the reason why Sligo, I thought, would win the game, did Ross Munley, John O'Loughlin and Colin Begley all retire. 3 losses. Like, that was big for Laois. But it seems like this new breed of players under Billy Sheehan, they're gaining a bit of confidence. And I think, like, even drawing against Meath in pre-season, and we were thinking both sides are on the decline, and seeing Meath beat Cork this week and Laois shock Sligo as well, maybe these two sides aren't as bad as we make out. Maybe. So, yeah, very good win for Laois. But I think Sligo, like, if they beat Leitrim, that's the big game for them now. Beat Leitrim, I think they should still have enough to go up. But this is a big game. This was a big game for them to win, especially home in Markievicz Park. They failed to do so. But yeah, I think Sligo, I still look at the players, I look at the management team. I think Sligo should be fine for promotion, along with Laois. I think Laois have given themselves a real chance of going back up to Division 3. And we probably need Laois back up to the top table. I think Sean Kavanagh actually mentioned Laois are a Division 2 team. I'm not sure do I actually agree with that. But anyway, like, even to get up to Division 3 would be a very good stepping stone for Laois.
Yeah, like I wonder, maybe did he mean like Laois, given their history and everything else, should be a Division 2 team rather than maybe the quality? I'm not too sure, but yeah, that kind of surprised me when he did say that as well. But a big result for Laois nonetheless. Carlow 210, Wicklow 210. Very entertaining game. A lot of goalkeeping errors. Looking at the highlights on Allianz League Sunday, like I think 3 of the goals came from goalkeeping errors, or in and around anyway, like defensive errors or silly errors. It was kind of kamikaze stuff at times, but finishes as a draw. Like, Wicklow, another side people looking at to potentially go up. I suppose it shows maybe that Oisin McConville still has a good bit of work to be done to get this side to keep out the goals. And from a Carlow perspective, positive, because it took them a long time to get going in Division 4 last year, and the fact they come away with a draw will just give them a little bit of positivity maybe moving forward.
It will do, yeah, and it was a very good showing from Carlow. I thought they struggled in Division 4 considering their defence last season, and they relied so heavily on Dar Foley in the O'Byrne Cup, particularly scoring 111 out of 113. But it looks to be Carlow are still developing players like Conor Crowley there, Jordan Morrissey. Like, they've some very good players all over them. I know Carlow have potential, but the problem was they were depending on one player way too often in the O'Byrne Cup particularly, and that was my worry with them. But look at this result against a decent Wicklow side, albeit it was at home, but at the same time, very good results for Carlow. For Wicklow, look, it's not the end of the world either. I think they should recover. Like, they've beat Laois before, they may do so again. Like, if they beat Laois, then the whole league opens wide open after that. So, like, look at this result and look at Laois's results against Sligo particularly. I think the league in Division 4 could be wide open this year. Any team could be going up and saying, we could go up here. I think the only objections to that probably is Waterford. I just think they're not good enough. But the other 7 teams are thinking, there's an opportunity for us. Maybe we could go up this season. So, yeah, I think both sides, it's not the end of the world for either side. I think Carlow will be the happier with the draw, considering a lot of people, including myself, would predict them to finish further down the table than usual, in fact. But, yeah, very good result of Wicklow, Oshie McConville. Considering they're a Board Cup form, this is a good start, a good draw for them as well.
Yeah, you'd Wexford 1-9, London 1-9. So London, as we remember last year, got a couple of surprise results at the start of the league. And I think I tipped them in my preview to beat Wexford, actually, just because of Wexford's inconsistencies and all the positive signs I've been hearing about London. It was a late Matthew Walsh goal that in the end sealed the draw from a London perspective. Like, I've seen Enda Lynn's in there. Few sort of recognisable names in that London side. So, you know, positive for London to get a draw. And I suppose for Wexford, same old, really, that, you know, they're just so inconsistent all the time. You can never back them in any of these games, really.
Exactly, and that was my reasoning as well. I said London in Pick of the Week in the JMAC podcast to beat Wexford. And that was the exact reason you mentioned there. You tore the words right out of my mouth. Like, Wexford are so inconsistent. Like, I said they'd get promoted last year and they didn't. You know, it was very, very disappointing from them. And then to draw, like, they were in, look at the sequence of play in this game. Wexford looked in control. And then to lose it in the last minute, lose a point in the last minute of the game. I mean, that was, you know, a hard one to take, especially at home for Wexford. Very, very hard one to take. But for London, like, in the Lynn, they are not thinking, is there a route to a Connacht final for London this year? Like, you have Leitrim, Sligo, New York on one side of the draw. Like, we could have a repeat of 2013 all over again. We could have, you know, the royal family saying, oh, will we get tickets to the Connacht final? It'd be just an incredible performance. Even we could see London in a group stage with Dublin or Kerry. Wouldn't that be incredible? You know, that would be some capsule against capsule. There'll be some battle in the amateur sport, but Jesus, like yeah, I think you're crazy thoughts now. But yeah, seriously, but in all seriousness, a brilliant result for London to get a late goal against Wexford. But with Wexford, I think very disappointing considering the fact they were at home and they had the game in the bag with a few minutes to go and they let it slip.
Yeah, like, and I think Dublin and London actually played each other once in the qualifiers back in like 2004 or something like that. So like, it has happened before, which is mad. But yeah, like, if they did end up playing each other, it would be quite bizarre, to say the least. Leitrim 318, Waterford 11 points, commanding, comprehensive result for Leitrim. I mean, yeah, like, what, a 16-point victory in Division 4. Not a good look for Waterford right there. You know, and it's a hard one to judge this. Are Leitrim that good or are Waterford that poor? I mean, what do you think?
It's a cliche answer, Aaron, but bit of both. Like, I think Leitrim are a very good side. Keith Byrne, Tom Pryor, very good players actually, and Andy Moore and his stamp his authority on the team. Waterford, I'm not saying they're a disgrace or anything. It's just Waterford. It's not a men's football county. Nobody's interested in it, literally. I've been down to Waterford. I've relations from Waterford. I'd love to see them do well. I'd love to see if Fitzgerald do well there. But no, there's just no buying for this Waterford team. Like, I've spoke to Brian Luby in the past few seasons. A particular game against Limerick, he was saying that Waterford, that's their aim, to get up to Limerick, to Clare, to Tipperary's level, and potentially challenge Cork. I'm sure they did a few seasons ago, actually, in the Padder Healy regime with Cork. They got within a point to them. But I think, honestly, that's as close they're going to get. I don't think there's much football being played in Waterford. Only in ladies football, they're actually pretty good. They're in Division 1, but it seems to be the only sport, the only code that are just not good enough, Waterford. They've a few nice players like Darragh Corcoran, who was on your podcast recently, Brian Luby, but like, it's just not into it. Like, I'm sure Jamie Barnes is actually a good footballer, but obviously they play hurling. Hurling will always be king in Waterford. And yeah, I think it could be a really, really bad season for Waterford in terms of results. But it's at the same time, we say it at the same time for Waterford every single season. It's where they are. They're last in the country for a reason. football isn't their stronghold, and yeah, that's where they are. But for Leitrim, good start to the league campaign, but definitely tougher test to follow.
Yeah, I suppose before we finish up, I'm going to introduce a bit of a new segment to this podcast where we just run through team of the week and everything else. So I've created my team of the week, and I'll get it on screen now, and you can let me know if you disagree, and maybe for the people watching down below, they can let us know as well. But in goal, I've gone for Ethan Rafferty of Armagh. I thought he was very impressive. He obviously kicked a point. Raymond Galligan kicked 3 points, to be fair, so he wasn't a million miles away. Mark Curran in a cornerback for Donegal. I thought he done very well for Donegal, picking up Killian Spillane. Padraig Faulkner in a fullback. Conor Daly in there for Roscommon. I thought done a very, very good job. Caelan McColgan in a right half back. I mean, he kicked 3 points. I thought he was outstanding. Connor Francis in there at centre back for Down. You've Niall Daly in there for Roscommon as well. 3 very good points from him. In midfield, I went with Brian Fenton and Enda Smith, which might be a bit of a surprise one. I mean, I know he came off the bench, I think around the 40th minute, but he set up 2 goals, and I thought he played very, very well. Jack Robinson in there for Kildare. I mean, look, he finished with 3 points. He was obviously playing in the full forward line, but I thought he was very good. Stephen Sherlock, 14 points for Cork. I mean, that speaks for itself. Shane Walsh in there for Meath. And then in the full forward line, Keith Byrne of Leitrim, Shane McGuigan of Derry, and Ryan O'Donoghue of Mayo. I suppose, any thoughts on that, maybe? Any thoughts on that team?
I think the only objection I have is probably maybe another few Meath defenders. I just was impressed with Meath yesterday. Their cynicism, particularly their willingness to tackle. I think Meath probably deserved more players in that team. Maybe put Donald Kyogan or somebody in that team instead of probably one of the dailies from Roscommon. I'm not sure, Niall or Connor. Goalkeeper, I think I personally go Raymond Galligan. I think he was outstanding with 3 frees. Rest of the team, though, I can't have many complaints. Keith Byrne, 110, very good performance. Even a left field one, but Sean Nolan for Wexford scored 1-3 from play. Joint top scorer from play over the weekend. So maybe he deserves a mention as well. Into Smith will have him as well, because I thought linking up the play, particularly when he came on for Roscommon, was outstanding. Brian Fenton, yes. Caelan McColgan, without a doubt. Connor Francis, without a doubt. Mark Curran, Padraig Faulkner. So I couldn't have much complaints, but I'd probably have what's his name for Wexford? The guy Sean Nolan, I think his name is, scored 1-3. One of the Meath defenders, and probably Raymond Galligan in goal. But other than that, I think that is a team ballpark, I think.
Yeah, like, it's obviously a hard one to know. Like, and I suppose one thing maybe we're pointing out in those team of the week, especially for the National League, is you don't get to see every game. So like, I'm putting Keith Byrne in because he scored 110, for example. He obviously had a great game, even though I didn't see him play. You know, like, it was close to putting Paul Kingston in. I thought he'd done well for Laois, scored 6 points, and that's obviously a big standout performance. Caelan McGonigal, I don't think was too far away from a Donegal perspective as well. Like, I thought he was fairly impressive in and around the middle. And the Brian Fenton one was weird. Like, I don't think he had his best game overall. Like, he scored the goal, to be fair, and he was Dublin's best player. But I still think you can see a bit more from him. But there wasn't too many midfielders I really thought that stood out at the weekend.
Yeah, there wasn't really. I think Caelan McGonigal is the big one there. I think midfield against Cork particularly wasn't that good. I think Cork actually dominated that department of the field. Very rare, really, from a team that was really outplayed. But like, I'm thinking, no, there wasn't much midfield performance. I'd agree with you on Brian Fenton. I didn't think he had his best game the other night. Like, he scored a goal, and that was about it, really. Thinking, who had a good game? Galway midfield was in a particularly good game. Mayo, maybe Matty Ruan, Jordan Flynn, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, but see, Matty Ruan did get a black card. I mean, it was an unfair black card. I don't think he done anything wrong. But yeah, maybe Jordan Flynn. Like, Killy McDade did score a good point as well. Like, I suppose it's a hard one to know, really, because there's so much happening up and down the country. Like, there's bound to be good midfield there somewhere, but we just didn't get to see it, you know?
Yeah, I'm thinking, it's just come into my head. Jordan Morrissey from Carlow, possibly. Maybe midfield. He had a good performance against Wicklow, including scoring a pretty good goal. And he usually plays around the half-back line, but he can play midfield. He usually does for his club. So maybe he can go in there alongside maybe Enda Smith. I'd actually agree with you on Enda Smith. I thought his link-up play particularly was outstanding. Yeah, I ballpark agree with you, but I probably put maybe one or two Meath players in that team. I thought their defence particularly was outstanding, like 23 frees conceded, but they were still cynical. They were willing to foul. I thought they were pretty good yesterday. And yeah, I'd probably put Ray McGallagher in goal, but I could see why he went with Ethan Rafferty. I think they went through on League Sunday, actually, the pros and cons of Ethan Rafferty, that he goes out of goal and there's a mess at the back line or something like that. But still, you have to appreciate it while it's here as well. Like, you don't see much goalkeepers like Ethan Rafferty nowadays. You know, it's incredible the way he's playing as well. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good team. I'd probably put in, thinking about now, probably Meath defender Jordan Morrissey's another brilliant show for Carlo as well.
Perfect. Well, look, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Anyways, Matthew, cheers very much for coming on. Obviously, make sure to check out the GA Statsman podcast as well when you get a chance on YouTube and over on Spotify as well. Obviously, done your own preview there during the week, so be plenty of content going out there. And for people who have watched this, if you could leave a like and subscribe, it would be very much appreciated. Matthew, cheers very much for coming on.
No bother on.